Y buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Rafael Vázquez Guzmán, and this is your show, Líderes del Futuro. Today we have a wonderful agent of change, an attorney in Sonoma County who has been advocating for the needs of special needs students. Entonces, el día de hoy tenemos una persona que ha dedicado su vida a mejorar las vidas de estudiantes con necesidades especiales en el condado de Sonoma. Marylou Hillberg es nuestra invitada, quien es una abogada que recientemente nos apoyó con un caso muy importante. Welcome and thank you for taking the time and being with us today in order to talk about the work that you have been doing for the community. Gracias por tomarse el tiempo y estar con nosotros, nosotras el día de hoy para hablar acerca del trabajo que ha estado haciendo en nuestra comunidad.
I'm honored to be asked and honored to be on this program with you. So thank you for asking me.
Y ella nos dice que es un honor para ella que la invitamos a este programa y que la invitamos para que nos compartiera un poco acerca de ella. So one of the things that, again, we want to make sure that the community understands is that often there is a group of people that gets left out in the educational system, and that is students with special needs. And so you have dedicated a lot of your professional life, if not most of your professional life, to working with this population. Can you tell us what motivated you to do this and what is the work that you have been doing? Entonces, es importante que nos demos cuenta de que una parte de la población en general en el sistema educacional, al cual en realidad se le ignora frecuentemente, son niños, niñas con necesidades especiales. Y usted ha dedicado la mayoría de su profesión a este trabajo, a apoyar a estos grupos de personas. ¿Nos podría contar qué le motivó a hacer este trabajo y qué es exactamente el trabajo que ha hecho?
Well, it's been a long journey. I'm fundamentally a criminal defense attorney, and I my practice in Sonoma County in 1980. I was drawn to juvenile law because I saw that also as an under population in the criminal justice, juvenile justice system. And I wanted a chance to make some changes in young lives before they got into the adult criminal defense system, from which they may never never get out of custody alive. So this has been a really long journey. I did a lot of juvenile law, and when I was doing that, I saw that so many of my clients had learning disabilities and problems in school. And their frustration with school often drives rather antisocial behavior. Kids get in trouble because they're frustrated and they don't have any success in school.
Okay, I'm going to translate and then we'll continue. Entonces nos dice que ella ha trabajado como defensora en casos criminales, dice, por muchos años, y parte del trabajo que ha hecho ha sido en el área del sistema de justicia juvenil, dice, donde ella trataba de asegurarse de que los jóvenes y jovencitas con las que trabajó no terminaran perdiendo sus vidas en el sistema de justicia. Y dice, la intención era de que al rato no terminaran encarcelados y encarceladas por el resto de su vida. Y una de las cosas que se dio cuenta es que unos de ellos y ellas tenían dificultades en el aprendizaje y en el sistema de la educación en las escuelas. Y dice, Lo que pasaba es que unos de ellos y ellas tenían problemas de comportamiento porque tenían dificultad en aprender y empezaban a mal comportarse, y eso es algo que ella se dio cuenta cuando estaba defendiendo a estas personas. And so it sounds like you started in the criminal defense system, but then you started noticing that there were issues with kids, again, within the educational system that were not receiving the right support. Did I understand you correctly?
Right. And as part of my job as a defense attorney, I learned that I really needed to try to help make changes throughout the person's life. And it often meant addressing the issues they were having in school. I was a private attorney, so most of the parents that hired me had a few more resources, so we could afford to get a psychological evaluation, get someone professional to take a look at the kid and find out where their issues were. But I found in so many cases they had learning disabilities, and they'd just been covering them up, or burying their heads in the sand. And if we didn't address all issues, the school issues, the home issues, they were going to be right back in the system. I learned that from having too many repeat clients.
Ay, sí. Entonces nos dice, le pregunto que si ella empezó como defensora en el área criminal y de ahí se dio cuenta que había problemas que se relacionaban también al sistema educacional. Y dice, sí, parte de mi trabajo era de que entonces nos dice que parte de su trabajo era asegurarse de, una vez más, de que los niños, niñas no regresaran al sistema de justicia. Y lo que se dio cuenta es que había niños y niñas que en las escuelas estaban teniendo dificultad. Dice, por la mayoría del tiempo, dice, yo he sido una abogada privada donde dice tenía clientes que podían pagar los costos necesarios, incluyendo para evaluaciones psicológicas. Y lo que nos dábamos cuenta es que en muchos de los casos, los niños, niñas tenían diferencias de aprendizaje o disabilidades, como les decimos. Y dice, sea las escuelas o a veces los familiares como que ignoraban las necesidades de estos niños y niñas, y por esa razón continuaban regresando al sistema de justicia. Dice, tendríamos que primero averiguar qué se necesitaba hacer de cambios en la escuela y en la casa para que así los niños y niñas no continuaran regresando, metiéndose en problemas y regresando a el sistema. And so it was what became obvious to you was that these children were having behavioral issues at home, at school, but a lot of it was because they had disabilities. And so, as you said, some of these families were able to pay for expensive assessments, psychological assessments, learning assessments. And so I would say over the years, what have you found? Is it that the system itself is not interested or lacks the resources to be able to do better for these children?
Well, my education really came after I had been practicing law for several years, and I had a son who is profoundly autistic. And that sort of drove me into overdrive. And I started really looking into the school systems, how they functioned. I was part of the special education local planning area governing board for a year, and really involved in the politics of special ed. I did it all. This was a long time. And I don't think there's any one thing you can point to except probably money. And it's not supposed to be driven by money, but the realities are that special education is continually underfunded. And it has what they call a negative draw on the general education funds. So the kids without disabilities or who aren't receiving services get less because the kids with special needs get more. When you have a district that's relatively wealthy, and doesn't have as many kids with disabilities, it's not as huge of a burden. But when you have a poorer school district with less resources, and there tend to be more kids with special needs in socioeconomic levels that deal with trauma, they deal with exposure to toxins, they deal with all a multitude of sins, to speak, the more of a draw. And the district administrators and school teachers are never driven by money, but that is really kind of the bottom line. And we know it's not a level playing field.
Definitely. Entonces le pregunto que, ¿qué es lo que una vez más ella aprendió con el tiempo? Y dice, en realidad yo empecé mi educación acerca de los servicios especiales cuando yo tuve mi propio hijo, quien tiene autismo a un nivel avanzado, dice, y en esa situación, dice, empecé a aprender acerca de cómo funciona el sistema educacional. Dice, me involucré en diferentes áreas del sistema, incluyendo estuve en una de las mesas directivas de educación especial, dice. Por mucho tiempo estuve involucrada en eso. Y dicen, nos damos cuenta que no es simplemente una cosa que determina cómo le van a dar servicios o no, pero probablemente el dinero es algo que definitivamente afecta, dice. Dice, el sistema de educación especial, dice, no recibe muchos fondos y en realidad recibe muy pocos fondos, dice. Entonces, en esta situación, ¿qué pasa? Si tienes un distrito donde hay un número grande de niños, niñas con necesidades especiales, donde se tiene que poner muchos de los fondos, los niños, niñas que no tienen necesidades especiales pierden parte de esos fondos, dice. Si tienes un distrito que tiene más recursos y menos en el número de estudiantes que tienen necesidades especiales, entonces vas a tener más fondos para todos y todas, dice. Y luego tenemos que reconocer que hay distritos donde hay pocos fondos y hay muchos niños que tienen diferentes causas de sus necesidades especiales, sea trauma, sea toxinas, y como resultado de eso se vuelve un problema, dice. Entonces, los distritos no necesariamente deben de verlo del punto de dinero, pero entendemos que no todas las escuelas reciben los mismos fondos. So you have been involved with this for how many years, and have you seen any changes at all?
Well, my son is 35 now. So I was very involved with schools from about 1991, when he was about 3, until he graduated, which was about 2007, I think, plus or minus. Anyway, I haven't seen a whole lot of changes. Unfortunately, it still is a problem with money. Although I'm not involved with the schools anymore, the cases I take on in the criminal defense world are more and more serious. Since year 2000 was a gradual transition, and now I'm doing death too. Because I'm really sort of gotten to be an expert, and in the death penalty world, if you're shown to be intellectually disabled, you're automatically exempted from the death penalty. So it's a big deal. So I've looked at a lot, and most of my cases, even if they aren't death penalty cases, are murder cases. And so I really have sort of gotten into that niche where I'm doing very, very serious cases. And so many of my clients had problems in school. So many of them. I look at lots and lots and lots of school records, and I see what kind of services they got or they didn't get. And I realized that my experience was really different. I not to say that they just, the districts just were wonderful and everything was handed to me on a silver platter, because it wasn't. I had to fight. And I joke that if you're going to have a kid with special needs, go to law school first. But it's not really a joke. I was the parent from hell. So it seems to me, this experience I had with you in dealing with this young man who was facing expulsion, that unless you kind of were the parent from hell or brought in me as the attorney parent from hell, that you get taken advantage of. And that was really really disappointing and aggravating to me, because if you don't deal with these issues early on, then it's not every kid with special needs is going to turn out to be a murderer. That's not true at all. But so many people who are in serious trouble and have in fact killed somebody else had these problems from early on, and they never got properly addressed. And it's more it's so much more costly in terms of human life and suffering to keep somebody in prison. It just put the money up front into these kids. That would do a hell of a lot to solve the crime rate and save money and anguish and suffering all the way down the line. So that's my kind of my passion.
Definitely. Entonces le digo, ¿ha visto algunos de estos cambios? Le digo, usted ya tiene, ¿cuánto tiempo tiene haciendo esto? Dice, bueno, mi hijo ya tiene 35 años, dice. Entonces yo estuve muy involucrada desde 1991, cuando él tenía 3, hasta más o menos el 2007, cuando se graduó, dice. Y en realidad no he visto muchos cambios, dice. El dinero es definitivamente un problema, dice. Y dice, ahora ya no estoy involucrada en lo de las escuelas, dice. Dice, los casos en las escuelas, dice, yo me moví y ahora empecé a trabajar y estoy trabajando en casos de pena de muerte, dice. Porque lo que sabemos es que si en esos casos de pena de muerte, si podemos identificar que la persona no puede entender necesariamente lo que ha hecho y cómo lo ha hecho, dice, entonces en realidad no lo podemos ejecutar, dice. Dice, yo trabajo en casos serios, dice, casos difíciles. Y lo que me doy cuenta es que muchos de estos niños y niñas que ahora son adultos y están en esa situación, dice, tuvieron problemas en las escuelas y no recibieron los servicios que necesitaban, dice. Y yo, dice, en el caso en el que estuve involucrada con ustedes, dice, recientemente, dice, me doy cuenta, y no es la primera vez que lo he visto, pero dice que no fue fácil para mí. Dice, a mí me consideraban, dice, la madre de muy dificultosa. Ella usa la palabra la madre del infierno, porque las escuelas no me querían ahí, dice. Y a veces digo un chiste, que no es un chiste, pero que es un chiste. Cuando lo digo, dice, si vas a tener un niño de necesidades especiales, es mejor que vayas a la escuela de leyes. Y es porque no va a ser fácil, dice. Y si no eres una madre o padre que va a estar ahí abogando todo el tiempo, es mejor que tengas un abogado o abogada que va a hacer ese trabajo. Dice, es importante, dice, en el caso donde querían expulsar a este niño recientemente, dice, es triste cómo las escuelas se mueven a la expulsión en vez de tratar de proveer los servicios, dice. Es importante de que nos demos cuenta de que muchos de los niños y niñas que crecieron y terminaron matando a alguien, dice, había evidencia de que estaban teniendo problemas desde que estaban chiquitos, chiquitas, pero nunca se les hizo un asesoramiento apropiadamente. Dice, los fondos que usamos para encarcelar a estas personas ahora, dice, se debieron de haber hecho desde el principio en prevención, en asesoramientos, y así hubiéramos prevenido dolor y angustia para muchas personas. And so, again, it sounds like you're not seeing much of a change. The work that you did with this case was essential, right? I'm not an attorney. I've been working with special needs kids, among other community members, for decades myself. But I wasn't going to be able to get as much done as you did just in a few days. And it also helps that at the end of your name, you have a title that says you're an attorney and that you have years and years of experience in doing this. And as a result of that, right, you were able to find us a solution that I was never going to be able to find. The fact that they offer the mom just this offer, it says, well, just sign here and your kid can just be moved out of the district somewhere else and basically become somebody else's problem. That became very problematic for me. And to a certain degree, what I saw was a lot of manipulation. And then when you came in, you step in and you said, no, there are certain things that are not being done properly. And again, you were able to take care of this, but we have to think of exactly what you just said. How many other kids are in similar situations that don't have a wonderful attorney that can step in and take on this case? So what can we do? Because there's only one of you and you're already busy dealing with kids who are dealing with the consequences
Right.
of their actions. What can we as a society do?
I think we have to advocate for our children. And I think that we have to learn to listen to our kids, what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and be willing to be the parent from hell. And I know that's really difficult. It was difficult for me, and I've been practicing law for almost 10 years. And, you know, I can't imagine difficulty for a parent who doesn't speak the language, who may not have documentation and have reason to be fearful. Culturally taught to be acquiescent to authority. And it's also really difficult to deal with on a personal level, on a child who doesn't meet normal expectations. I certainly experienced that. I certainly experienced a lot of judgment, and it was really hard to learn to feel that I wasn't myself. So there's a lot of issues that have to be dealt with on a personal. That I found were an organization called Matrix, Matrix, and they have a lot of resources in Spanish as well as English. and they have all kinds of educational programs that people can attend or watch online. I haven't, as I said, I haven't been involved with this for many years, but I would highly recommend anyone who thinks that their children might have special needs to contact Matrix and educate themselves and reach out to other parents and support each other, and know that you're going to have to be your child's best advocate, and it's hard.
Definitely. Okay.
But if you don't, the
Mm-hmm.
consequences could be really, really awful.
Okay. Let me translate. And so dice que debemos de, le pregunto, ¿usted está involucrada en este proceso, en este programa, en todos los servicios por muchos años? ¿Ha usted visto algún cambio? Y dos, ¿qué es lo que podemos hacer para mejorar las oportunidades para estos niños y niñas de necesidades especiales? Y dice, lo que tenemos que hacer es abogacía por nuestros niños y niñas. Tenemos que aprender a escuchar a nuestros niños y niñas y ver qué es lo que funciona para ellos, ellas, y qué es lo que no funciona para ellos, ellas. Dice, fue difícil para mí. Y tenemos que reconocer que padres y madres de familia de estos niños y niñas, tenemos que volvernos lo que el distrito nos va a clasificar como los padres difíciles. Y dice, y yo entiendo, dice, hay padres que tal vez son indocumentados, indocumentadas y tienen miedo. Hay padres, madres que no entienden el idioma de inglés. Dice, y hay padres que desde la cultura nos enseña a que tenemos que mantenernos callados, calladas y ya seguir lo que la escuela nos diga, aunque esté incorrecto. Pero dice, también tenemos que entender la dificultad. Dice, yo tuve que aprender lo difícil que es tener un niño o niña que no sigue las mismas normas y expectativas de la sociedad. Dice, hay muchas cosas que yo tuve que ver y pasar y sobrepasar también a un nivel personal. Y lo que yo le digo a la comunidad dice que yo encontré una organización que se llama Matrix, Matrix. Y dice, muchos de los ellos tienen muchos recursos en inglés y en español. Tienen programas educacionales y yo recomiendo a todo padre y madre de familia que tenga un hijo o hija que usted piensa, aunque no ha sido clasificado todavía, que todavía usted piensa que tal vez tiene una dificultad en el aprendizaje. Conéctese con esta organización Matrix, pero también conéctese con otros padres y madres que tengan niños, niñas con necesidades especiales y apóyense uno al otro, una a la otra, porque las consecuencias cuando no se le provee los servicios a uno de estos niños, niñas, las consecuencias son muy grandes. And I really like that piece that you said at the end, right? The consequences of not providing for our children now are very difficult to deal with. And the work that you do now, working with people who have been or are being pushed to um, life in prison or the death penalty, when nobody has taken the time and assess what the special needs that these children had from the day that they were born. Those are the consequences. And in the Latinx community, the other piece, which you also mentioned there, that you had to go through that process of accepting that you had a child with special needs that didn't meet society's expectations on what was quote unquote normal and not normal. A lot of our Latinx community members suffer from shame. Oh, I don't want my kid to be assessed for special needs because then I may have to feel guilty that I did something wrong during pregnancy or that I am a bad parent, when obviously it has nothing to do with that. But again, this is why it's important to have these conversations with professionals like yourselves, because you are dealing with the natural consequences of a society that did not provide the services to these children. Is there any final comment that you would like to make to the community in general?
If yes, if you have any concerns about your child's development or behavior, the earlier you get involved and the earlier that you start looking at resources, the more chances you have to make a change for their life. And you just get a lot more bang for your buck with therapies the earlier you start them. So I know a lot of people wait and see, it's not so bad. My son was bad enough that it was pretty obvious, but I've seen a lot of other parents who, don't want to admit that they have a problem, or the schools or whoever is saying, oh, it's not that bad. I would say keep pushing. I I I know Matrix is a good place to start. There's probably a lot of other things that are available on the internet that I don't know about because there wasn't an internet when we started this whole process with my kid.
Mhm.
But just start early, don't wait. And it's heartbreaking. I had a resentencing in a murder case in Alameda County this year, and this was also a young man who had killed the mother of 3 children, and in a basically just shooting wildly and not meaning to hurt anybody, but he killed this woman. And it was so tragic. And at this resentencing, because her family was there and they're devastated, and his mom was there because she actually tried to get him help early on and was met with all kinds of difficulties. And it's not a level playing field. If you're in a family of color, it's not, it's harder for you. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And his mom and I were both crying on each other's shoulders because it's so painful and it's so difficult. But again, I just don't want to, and I don't want to be there crying with the family of my client and the family of the victim, and it's such a tragedy. And it's, if you can get those kind of consequences, and that's my pitch. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Entonces le pregunto, ¿hay algún último comentario que le gustaría hacer? Obviamente, esta es información muy importante y dice, si usted tiene alguna preocupación acerca de su niño, su niña, y que si tal vez tiene dificultades en el aprendizaje, entre más pronto usted empiece el asesoramiento y a buscar recursos, ese niño, esa niña va a tener más oportunidades para obtener el apoyo necesario, dice. Sí, dice, yo entiendo, hay veces gente que dice, oh, sí, como que veo algo, pero voy a esperar, dice, a ver qué pasa. O, ¿sabes qué? No es una dificultad muy grande. Dice, lo que yo recomendaría es, siga empujando para cambios, para servicios, a ver qué existe. Dice, mencioné la organización Matrix, pero dice, hay otros servicios que podrían apoyarle en la Internet. Dice, no había una Internet cuando empezamos este trabajo hace tantos años, dice. Pero dice, por favor, empiecen a averiguar acerca de servicios pronto, a buscar asesoramientos. No espere, dice. Recientemente, dice, yo fui a una corte, dice, donde se hizo una sentencia una segunda vez en el condado de Alameda para un muchacho que había disparado y terminó, nada más estaba disparando sin pensar de las consecuencias y mató a una mamá de 3 niños. Dice, cuando estábamos en la corte, dice, su familia de la señora que falleció, dice, estaba ahí porque ellos están sufriendo. Y la mamá de este joven estaba ahí porque ella también dice, ella trató desde que estaba chiquito de recibir el apoyo, dice. Dice, y yo estaba llorando, la mamá del muchacho estaba llorando, y dice, yo no quiero que más gente siga sufriendo y termine llorando en la misma manera como yo y estas familias han sufrido, dice. Y agradezco por estar aquí. So I want to thank you for taking the time and being here, and I want to thank you for the work that you did with this young man. And just looking even for an attorney, it took me to go talk to another attorney who's a good friend of mine, who's a good friend of yours, for him to make the referral and says, oh, go talk to Marylou. She knows about this work. But again, how many other families don't have anybody, any resources? So thank you for mentioning Matrix, and we'll continue to promote them because again, people need to learn about their rights and their responsibilities in this area. So thank you for taking the time and being here with us. Thank you for the work that you've done all these years. And again, you're welcome to come back to our show, Líderes del Futuro, anytime if you have any updates, any information, or just want to continue to educate the community. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
You
I'm
take care.
honored to be. Okay.
All right. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye bye.